It's me again. So today, we are going to talk about the non-Mendelian law of inheritance. But first, our objective for this day is to explain the different patterns of the non-Mendelian inheritance. But first, here are some terms we must familiarize. First is the phenotype. What is phenotype? So phenotype is the observable properties of an organism such as the color, the size, the texture, the appearance, and so on. Next is the genotype. It is the genetic constitution of an individual or an organism. Usually, a designated letter is provided to identify the genotype of a specific organism. Example of a genotype is the male chromosome. The male chromosome has a genotype of X and Y. The female chromosome has a genotype of letter X and X. Next is the allele. It is a different form of a gene that controls a certain trait. Next is the gamete. What is gamete? Gametes are reproductive cells that unite during sexual reproduction, baby, to form a new cell called zygote. Next is the heterozygote. It is an individual having two different alleles of a particular gene or genes, and so giving rise to varying offspring. Next is the homozygote. It is an individual having two identical alleles of a particular gene or genes, and so breeding true for the corresponding characteristics. And lastly is the Punnett square. What is the Punnett square? It is the method by which one can determine the possible genotype and the phenotype when two parents are Now, let us talk about the non-Mendelian pattern of inheritance. First is the incomplete dominance. What is incomplete dominance? Incomplete dominance is when a heterozygote shows a phenotype that is intermediate between the two homozygous phenotypes. The phenotype of the offspring is somewhere in between the phenotype of both parents. Neither allele is dominant over the other. This means, and this results in a third phenotype in which the expressed physical trait is a combination of the dominant and recessive phenotypes. To help you understand more, here is an example of an incomplete dominance. A flower color in 4 o'clock plant. When a pure red flowered 4 o'clock plant is crossed with a pure white flowered 4 o'clock plant, the offspring will produce neither the red nor the white flowers. Instead, all flowers will be pink or expressed in a third phenotype. To facilitate what you have learned, let us perform an activity. This activity is called the phenotypes and genotypes in incomplete dominance. The objectives for this activity is to explain incomplete dominance pattern of inheritance. Pattern. Second is illustrate by means of Punnett square a cross involving incomplete dominance pattern of inheritance. So to illustrate this activity, we will use the Punnett square. First procedure. This is our situation. In a 4 o'clock plants, the R is the allele for the red color and W is the allele for the white color. So, two pink flowered 4 o'clock plants were crossed. So, we must show the possible outcome of the cross between the two pink flowered 4 o'clock plants by using the Punnett square.
Now here is the first situation. Two pink flower 4 o'clock plants. How will we represent it on the Punnett square? So first is to draw a Punnett square. Okay, so the genotype of the pink flower 4 o'clock plant is RW. So how will we put the two pink flower 4 o'clock plant on the Punnett square? So first, pink flower 4 o'clock plant, we will put the genotype here at the upper part, R and W. Then the next pink flower 4 o'clock plant is in the left side. So we have now two pink flower 4 o'clock plants. So how will we solve the Punnett square? So first square the R and the R. So the offspring would be the genotype RR. The second offspring would be the genotype RW. The third offspring would be the RW. And the fourth offspring would be the WW. Okay, so considering the Punnett square here, what is the phenotype of the offsprings? We can observe here that the first phenotype of the offspring is red. The genotype of the red is RR. Next phenotype is the RW, or the pink. The genotype of the pink is RW. Next offspring is also pink. So we have now two pinks and two genotype of RW. The next is WW, or the phenotype of white. And the genotype of white is WW. So after determining the phenotype and the genotype, we will now identify the percentage of each offspring. So the red offspring has only 25% of the total offsprings in the Punnett square. Next is the pink. So we have two pinks here, so 25 plus 25 is equals to 50%. Then next is the white offspring. So we only have one white offspring, so we have 25% of white. So 25 plus 25 plus 50 is a total of 100%. So lastly is the ratio. So how will we identify the ratio? So red has only one, so one red is to two pink is to one white. So the ratio 1 is to 2 is to 1.
Now, another cross was made involving a red flowered 4 o'clock plant and a pink flowered 4 o'clock plant. So, using the Punnett square again, show the possible outcome.
So the second situation involves one red 4 o'clock flower and one pink 4 o'clock flower. So we will draw another Punnett square. So we will put the 4 o'clock red flower on the top portion. So red represents R and R. Then the pink 4 o'clock flower would be put in here. So R and W. Now we will identify the offspring. First offspring, second offspring, third offspring, and fourth offspring. So we will now identify the phenotype. So we have two red 4 o'clock flowers. The genotype is RR. We have 2. Next is the pink. We have 2 pink offsprings, while the genotype is RW. Okay, so after determining the phenotype and the genotype, we will now identify the percentage. The percentage of the red offspring is 50% because we have 2 red flowers. Then the pink is also 50% because we also have 2 pink flowers, so a total of 100%. Lastly is the ratio. So we only have 2 offspring, so 2 reds is to 2 pinks. So ratio is 2:2.
Now, we are finished making the Punnett square, and we shall answer the guide questions. Guide question number 1. How many types of gametes will each parent produce in problem number 1? Also, how many types of gametes will each parent produce in problem number 2? Very good. Question number 2. What is the phenotype of a heterozygous 4 o'clock flower? Really? Good job. Guide question number 3. What are the possible phenotypes of the offspring from the cross of the parental plants in problem number 1? Good. Now, in problem number 2, great! You did a great job. Last question, number 4. What are the possible genotypes of the offspring from the cross of the parental plants in problem number 1 and problem number 2? Are you sure? Very good. Congratulations! The second non-Mendelian pattern of inheritance is what we call as the codominance. What is codominance? It is when both of the alleles are expressed equally in the phenotype of the heterozygote. The resulting heterozygotes exhibit the traits of both parents. Now, to further understand the concept of codominance, here is a given situation. Mang Marcelino owns a purebred red cows. In his farm, he noticed that after a typhoon several months ago, all of the fences that separate his cattle from his neighbor's cattle were destroyed. During the time that the fences were down, 3 bulls, one from each neighbor, mingled with his cows. So for a while, he thought that none of the bulls found his cows, but over the months, he noticed that all of his cows are pregnant. He suspected that one of the bulls is the father. Which bull is it? Now let us help Mang Marcelino look for the father by solving the given problem. Now here is the situation. A red bull is mated with a red cow. Second situation, a red bull is mated with a white cow. Third situation, a roan is mated with a red cow. Now, given these 3 situations, let us illustrate our answers by using the Punnett square. Now let us go to the multiple alleles. Alleles are alternative form of a gene that controls a certain trait. Normally, a gene is controlled by only 2 alleles, but there are genes that have 2 or more alleles. For example, in human, the ABO blood type, in this case, 3 alleles are controlling the blood group, wherein blood type A is codominant with the blood type B, and the blood type O is recessive. As shown on the table is the human ABO blood types and their phenotypes and genotypes. In this activity, we shall infer the unknown phenotypes of individuals on the basis of the known phenotypes of their family members. Given the blood types of the mother and the child, we shall identify the possible blood type of the father. Here is the given data. Complete the data given on the box. In the part 2, we shall show the possible alleles that can be found in each offspring and write the blood type for each offspring. Here is the given data on the table. Now let us check all your answers. Congratulations everybody, you have done a good job. Remember guys, blood type O is recessive. 2 O alleles must be present for a person to have type O blood. And the blood type A and B are codominant. If a person receives an A allele and a B allele, their blood type is type AB. The inheritance of some characters does not strictly follow Mendel's law of independent assortment. There are many traits that are inherited together more frequently. For example, the expression of certain traits depends on whether one is male or female. Apparently, the expression of the traits is determined by or related to one's sex. Now here is the sex-related inheritance. Another exception to Mendelian rules is the sex-related inheritance. It can be categorized into 3. First is the sex-linked, second is the sex-influenced, and third is the sex-limited. Now, sex chromosomes and sex determination. There are 23 pairs of human chromosomes. As we all know, 22 pairs are called the body chromosomes, and the 23rd pair referred to as the sex chromosome. Males have 2 sex chromosomes, the X and the Y, while females have both X chromosomes. Humans have a total of 46 chromosomes in each cell. Now let us perform this activity. We shall draw a Punnett square which shows the inheritance of the sex chromosomes. Represent the female sex chromosomes with XX and the male sex chromosomes with XY. Then after we've drawn the Punnett square, let us answer these following guide questions. Now here are the answers for your reference. Let's now go to the sex-linked traits. Sex-linked traits are inherited through the X chromosomes. Males have only one X chromosome. Thus, if they inherit the affected X, they will have the disorder, while females have two X chromosomes. Therefore, they can inherit or carry the trait without being affected if it acts in a recessive manner. Now, genes located on the X chromosomes are called X-linked genes. Example of X-linked traits in humans is the hemophilia. What is hemophilia? Hemophilia is a blood disorder or a blood either clots very slowly or does not clot at all. Another example is the color blindness. Now I will be showing a table that consists the genotype and the phenotype of a color blindness in humans. Notice that for a female to become colorblind, she must be homozygous for the colorblind genes. The trait is therefore recessive in females. If a female has only one X chromosome with the allele for color blindness, she becomes normal but can pass on the trait to her offspring. She is therefore a carrier of the trait. Then since the males have only one X chromosome, the gene for color blindness when present in the male will always be expressed because it does not have an allele to hide or prevent its expression. Thus, the male will be color blind. This is the reason why color blindness is more common in males than in females. Next is genes on the Y chromosomes are called the Y-linked genes. Example of a Y-linked trait is the hypertrichosis pineaoris.
Amazing!
This is a genetic disorder in humans that causes hairy ears. Since the trait is found in the Y chromosome, then only males can have the trait. A father who has the condition will pass it on to all his sons, and they in turn will pass it on their own sons.
Oh my God!
Next is the sex-limited traits. Sex-limited traits are those that are expressed exclusively in one sex. In females, for example, lactation is expressed in females but not in males. The gene for lactation is present in both males and females but is only expressed in females. Males never produce milk even if they possess genes for lactation. Next is the sex-influence traits. Sex-influence traits are expressed in both sexes but more frequently in one than in the other sex. Example of it is the pattern baldness in human. Pattern baldness in human is common. Example of sex-influence trait. This trait is not restricted to males, but the expression is controlled by the hormone testosterone. This hormone is present in both male and female, but males have higher testosterone level than females. Then this results that recessive allele for baldness behaves like dominant allele in males and recessive in allele in female. Now we are done on the non-Mendelian pattern of inheritance. I hope you had a great time in learning on this particular topic. Hope to see you again for our next lesson. Take care and twerk! Bye!